Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to tackle one of JavaScript's most game-changing features, async/await. We're going to see how you can take that messy, nested code that we've all written and turn it into something that's clean, super readable, and honestly, feels a little bit like magic. Let's just jump right in.
I mean, who hasn't been there, right? You're juggling API calls, timers, user events, and before you know it, your code starts looking like this wild pyramid of .then blocks. You know, the dreaded pyramid of doom. Well, what if there was a way to make it all just read from top to bottom, nice and simple, just like regular synchronous code?
Well, this is where async and await come to the rescue. These two little keywords work together to totally change how you handle all that asynchronous stuff in JavaScript. So let's break down what each of these actually does.
Okay, first up, async. You can think of this as a special label you stick on a function. When you put async in front of a function, you're basically signaling two really important things to JavaScript. Number one, this function is probably going to do something that takes a bit of time, and number two, it is always going to return a promise, always.
Now for the really cool part, await. And here's the crucial rule. You can only use await inside one of those async functions we just talked about. When you put await in front of a promise, it literally tells the function, all right, hold up, just pause right here. We're not going any further until this promise is done and gives us a value.
And this is the absolute key, you guys. The function pauses, but your whole application, it keeps on chugging along. The JavaScript event loop is free to go off and handle clicks, run animations, do whatever else it needs to do. So you get the best of both worlds, code that's easy to read and an app that stays responsive.
All right, so theory is one thing, right? But let's actually see this stuff in action. We're going to walk through a simple little example to see how this all comes together.
Okay, so let's set the scene with a super common example. We've got a function here, we'll call it fetchData, and it pretends to be a network request. So it takes 2 seconds to finish, and the most important part is that it returns a promise. That promise is like an IOU, a placeholder for the data that's coming eventually.
So how do we use it? Simple. We create a new function called getData, and we slap that async keyword on it. Inside, we call our fetchData function, but we put the await keyword in front of it. And that's where await does all the heavy lifting, pausing everything until our data is ready. So if you were to run this, what would you actually see in the console? Well, fetching would pop up right away. Then, silence. For 2 whole seconds, our function is just waiting patiently. And then, once the promise from fetchData resolves, data received gets logged. See? It's perfectly step-by-step.
But honestly, the coolest part here is what you don't see. There are no then chains, no nested callbacks. The code is just clean. It's flat. You can read it from top to bottom like a story. That right there is the big win.
So if it's not using .then, how does it actually work? This brings us to a really important concept, especially if you're prepping for a tech interview. This idea of syntactic sugar.
Syntactic sugar. It sounds complicated, but it's not. It's just a nicer, sweeter way to write code that already exists. Async await doesn't add some brand new capability to JavaScript. It's just a beautiful new coat of paint on top of the promise system we already know and use.
So what's really happening under the hood? Well, your async function is still working with promises. Await is just a super clean way to get the value out of that promise without having to write .then. At the end of the day, it still promises all the way down, just made much, much easier to read and debug.
Okay, so now that we get the basics, let's level up. Because like any powerful feature, there are a few common pitfalls you got to watch out for if you want to write solid production-ready code.
Okay, trap number 1. I guarantee almost every developer has made this mistake. You try to use await all by itself, outside of an async function. If you do this, JavaScript will just stop. It'll throw a syntax error. It's a non-negotiable rule. Await has to live inside an async function, period.
Luckily, the fix is super simple. You just have to wrap your code in an async function. You'll see this pattern all the time. Just create a small async function, maybe call it main or init, and then call it right away to get everything started.
Okay, this is a huge deal. We've been talking about the happy path, when everything works and the promise resolves. But what about when things go wrong? You know, a network error, a server is down. What happens when that promise rejects?
Well, if you don't handle that error, your application will come to a screeching halt. An unhandled promise rejection in an async function will just crash your entire script. That's a massive bug you absolutely cannot have in your code.
And the solution? It's actually something you probably already know from regular synchronous code, the good old try-catch block. You wrap your risky await call in the try block. If it works, great. If it fails, the code execution jumps to the catch block, where you can handle the error gracefully without the whole thing blowing up.
All right, this next one is a huge performance trap that's really easy to fall into. On the left, we're awaiting inside a loop. This is like making everyone wait in a single line at the checkout, one at a time. It works, but it can be super slow. But now, check out the parallel approach on the right. For tasks that can all run at the same time, you use Promise.all. This is like opening up multiple checkout lanes. You kick off all the tasks at once, and then you just wait for all of them to finish. It's a game changer for performance.
Okay, so let's wrap this up into a quick checklist, especially for you interview preppers out there. If you want to show you really know your stuff, hit these 4 points. Explain that it's syntactic sugar, hammer home the readability benefit, never ever forget to mention try-catch for error handling, and then show you're a pro by talking about Promise.all for performance.
You know, this quote really just sums it all up perfectly. It's all about taking something that's naturally complicated, like waiting for things, and making the code for it look simple and logical. I mean, it's not literal magic, but the difference it makes to your codebase, it really, really feels like it.
So at the end of the day, getting a solid handle on async/await just unlocks so much of modern web development. You'll be able to work with APIs, set up complex timers, and manage all sorts of async logic with confidence. So the only question left is, what cool, complex thing are you going to build with this first?